red road, stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel, heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the bad, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Hand of the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
All right, all right, all right. Where am I? For goodness sakes. That's not good. Let's do it this way. That's better. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to, strictly speaking, Unfiltered on a Monday. Thank goodness gracious. It's the 29th morning, right? The 29th morning. So the penultimate morning of the month of in the year of our Lord 2026. Yeah, that means there's only one more after this one. Thank goodness in heaven. I posted that someplace. Actually, I shared somebody else's post on that on X. I think it was X or on Facebook. You know what it was? It was it was Jason Whitlock, I think. I think it was Jason Whitlock. Jason Whitlock, who is a commentator on Outkick and Fearless and some other places, does a really, really great job. I'm really a fan of Jason Whitlock. And hopefully everything is... I don't have anybody working with me today, so I want to make sure everybody can hear me today. So do me a favor, if you're in the chat, give me a shout out. Let me know that all is good and all is well, and you can indeed hear me. I would like to confirm that. And yeah, I've got all kinds of strange stuff happening here. But back live for the first time in 6 shows, I think. Yeah, the last 6 shows were all pre-recorded the night before because I was doing some radio in Houston. Good folks down there, good people in Houston, Texas. I can tell you that. So anyway, yeah, good. Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate the confirmation there. You can hear me okay. I'm looking for some sort of signal. It's weird. Dylan isn't in today, and the last 6 shows were pre-recorded because I was doing the Houston radio. So I'm live now. I'm trying a little rustier and trying to get all of my bearings with everything I've got to get done here. And not to mention, I got new internet installed over the weekend. You guys using that FiberNet stuff? FiberNet. Gosh, I'm losing my mind. Maybe is it called FiberNet? Now I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's but anyway, got rid of the old slower thing. I've got 1,000 download, 1,000 upload now, which is pretty good. Maybe you already had it, and I was just using the tin can with the string thing for my internet, but got it installed on Saturday, and it's a lot cheaper, and it's a lot faster. That I can say. What I've used over the course of the weekend, it's a lot faster, but it's also been a little okay. It's not connected. It is connected. It's not connected. So I'm hoping we don't have any glitches that kick us offline today. If you do see the show end abruptly, know that my house didn't blow up. I'm good. It's not like it's Twinsburg. Did you see that horrible home thing? Terrible, terrible explosion. Thank God. I think nobody was actually killed in that. Anyway, if we cut out, just know that it's a connectivity thing. It's not a terrorist attack. So that's fiber optic. Look at Therese, Buckeye Therese, and Sherry. Both of you guys blink, got it in. Thank you guys very much. Look at that. Got a little comments up there. Don't forget, if you can, you guys, put your face on there. I hate the generic little blue, blue and white stick figure or whatever you want to call that. Put your face on there if you would. Give yourself your little bio or your little, God, I can't think of my words today. Icon profile pic. There you go, profile pic. So we've got a good one today for you. It's an important one. Coming up in less than a half an hour, we're going to talk about guns, and we're going to talk about gun violence. And I put that in air quotes because I hate that term. I really, really do. People on the left like to call shootings gun violence because it makes it sound as though it's the guns that are the responsibility. The guns are to blame. The guns are not to blame. It is people. Whether you're slashing people to death with knives like they are all over the UK, or you're shooting them, or you're ramming crowds with your big van and running them down. If you're committing violent attacks and killings and assaults and so on and so forth in people, it's the people who are committing the violence, not the guns. So I hate that phrasing of gun violence, gun violence, gun violence. That's a big red flag for me. Anyway, that's what they're talking about in Akron. I got a comment. I mean, I got a reach out just this past week from Amanda Suffolk, who's our friend from the NRA, and she's the primary reason why I was invited down to Houston back in April, I guess it was, for the NRA convention for the Voices of 2A. And she asked me if she could come on and we could talk a little bit about this article in the Akron Beacon Journal about gun violence. Curbing gun violence in Akron beyond city's control. And this is from the Beacon Journal's editorial board. And I'm sad to say that it would appear that the Beacon Journal is just like the Plain Steamer and the Columbus Dispatch and the Toledo Blade and the rest of the right-wing or left-wing newspapers who want to demonize everything that the right stands for, including, and in this case, especially the Second Amendment. They're calling it a familiar pattern. As the temperatures begin to increase, so too does gun violence and crime. Yeah, because those two have something to do with one another. Because it's warm, thugs who shoot people and one another suddenly now are in more of a shooting mood. No, pretty sure it has nothing to do with the temperatures. It has everything to do with the culture. It has everything to do with the family. It has everything to do with the background. That's what it has to do with. We've seen this resume over the past, I guess it's resumed the way they use it here. We've seen this resume over the past month with drive-by shootings that have left people injured inside homes and a shooting in Highland Square that led to earlier business closings. How do we break out of this pattern? Okay, drive-by shootings have nothing to do with the temperature. Okay? Shooting in Highland Square, nothing to do with the temperature either. If people are out and acting like thugs and acting animalistic, because they're animals, not because they're warm. Just want to be clear about that. Gun violence is a national issue. There it is again. This is how you know what the Beacon Journal is all about. As Akron Mayor Shamas Malik pointed out during a recent news conference, arguments that once would have ended in fistfights now descend into potentially deadly gunfights. That's because of guns, not because of the animalistic nature of people who bring guns to gatherings with other thugs. Right. The U.S. has more guns than people, according to data from World Population Review. That's probably because some of us have, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15, 25 guns. Yeah, what's your point? We're in the 93rd percentile of all countries for firearm mortalities. Yeah, that's very, very true, which is precisely why we want to be armed, because we need to protect ourselves and prevent ourselves from becoming firearm mortalities. What is the U.S. doing differently than every other developed countries? Well, what the U.S. is doing differently is protecting its people with the most glorious document in the history of humankind, the United States Constitution, the one that has as its second amendment in the Bill of Rights, protecting yourself, arming yourself. Your right to arm yourself shall not be infringed, because we do want to make sure that we can fight back against a tyrannical government if it comes down to it, like the one we did 250 years ago this coming Saturday. So yeah, it kind of matters. It's a really big deal. So Amanda Suffolk's coming on here in about 15, and then we're going to talk. She's going to break this thing down little by little, and I'm very much looking forward to that. She's going to break down, or should say word by word or point by point, what the Akron Beacon Journal is arguing here, because there's violence in Akron, because there are thugs shooting one another on the streets. Suddenly we have to disarm all of the law-abiding people. It would be like having, we had a real big wave of drunk driving incidents over the course of the last two months. It's really, really picked up. Maybe it's the summer months. So the heat, when the heat rises, more people go out and drink and get drunk and drive drunk and crash their cars. And we've had a wave of those. So to combat that, we're going to take the cars away from people who don't drive drunk. We're going to take the cars away from everybody. Do you know that there are more cars on the roads than there are people? We got to take the cars away. The cars are the problem. It's car violence is what it is. That's how much sense that makes. Bad guys with guns are shooting innocent people with guns, and sometimes, most of the time, other bad guys with guns. So therefore, the good guys with the guns should have their guns taken away. Got it. Super theory and philosophy. We're going to talk about that. Then, as you see or hopefully you did see from the opening graphic there, yeah, we've got ourselves a plan today. We are going to be talking with this guy. He would be the potential next governor of the state of Ohio. Vivek Ramaswamy is going to join us. It's been a minute since I've talked to the GOP candidate for governor, and I am very much looking forward to getting him back on. There are a whole lot of questions that I have, and I know there are a whole lot of questions that you have. Last night, I went on the locals page, and I threw it out to our Unfiltered insiders, and then I kind of expanded it to my Facebook page for everybody. But I said, what questions do you have for Vivek Ramaswamy? What would you like to know? And I'm asking you that as Republican or conservative-minded people, who typically are the people who watch this live stream and this podcast, if you're watching it on playback. There are a lot of conservatives who are concerned about Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign. A lot of people are concerned that he is not out there doing the grassroots thing, that he's not out there among the people. He's not giving people a chance to ask him the questions. That at some of the events that he's shown up to, it's been less than optimal conditions in terms of his availability to talk to the people and listen to the people and so forth. I can tell you that I think that has changed a lot. In fact, I might even be able to scroll his X feed for a second here. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Vivek Ramaswamy has been busy out in the grassroots, if you will. Let me pop this up here on the screen. Like I said, I'm kind of flying solo here, so work with me, all right? Yeah, here we go. So this is Vivek Ramaswamy's X feed right now. I'll zoom it up here the best I can. Here we go. Heartwarming to see the next generation of young farmers visiting every one of the rural communities across this state. That's big. That really is. That's a very, very good strategy. It's an important strategy. Met a wise man at a county fair. Listen to what he says about stopping the spread of socialism. Okay, I'll listen.
he was a good guy. Very special man.
Well,
Great.
let's-
How are you? Great. How are you?
I like your shirt, my man.
Yeah, you like that, huh?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do
I
too.
do. Yeah.
Miss Charlie.
Yeah.
Great guy.
He was a good guy. Very special man.
Yep.
But we'll carry on, you know?
Yeah. Sure thing.
Carry on the mission.
Yep. For the love of our Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So-
our country is the best one on earth. You know, it's up to us to preserve it.
Yeah. You gotta watch some
250th
people. Gotta watch
anniversary.
some people in New York.
Yeah, well, you got to make sure that we get it right in Ohio. I mean,
Yes,
that kind of
yeah.
socialism
Yeah.
is
You
coming
gotta-
to Ohio. The woman I'm running against, she's a socialist.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
She was going to shut down these fairs.
She shut the state down, and then she cried and went home.
That's right. But we'll do it the right way. We'll do it. We'll keep it
All right.
positive. What's your
Okay.
name, man?
John Morrison.
Good to meet you, John.
All right, so there's Vivek out there shaking hands, talking to the people at county fairs. He's kind of popping all over the place. There he is on some Ohio radio, Bill Cunningham show down in Cincinnati, talking about Charlie Kirk with some other folks.
Okay. I did a little interview with one of the guys earlier. Hey, but I got a question for you.
Okay.
This isn't because I agree with about everything you said. How cool was Charlie Kirk to hang around?
He was great.
Yeah.
He's just a
I love that.
phenomenal human.
I
I
love
spent a lot of time with him. I knew him a lot. I knew him better than most. And
I love that video with you and him at that college. You were so impressive.
thank you.
You were so
We did a
impressive.
bunch of them. We're going to miss him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But we got to do our part now.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Everything happens
Yeah.
with
Our-
an expectation.
our-
You got to do your duty.
Yeah,
So,
our kiddos are paying for it. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I really like that, and I'm glad those ads are out there or those posts on X. I'm glad to see. Here's another picture you can see of what does that say? The Dutton Ranch, which is kind of funny, by the way, because that's the big show on television right now. Or it's one of them. It's the spinoff of Yellowstone, but Dutton Ranch in Belmont County. Talking there about bringing down healthcare costs, electric bills, property taxes, while prosecuting Medicaid fraud and so much more. It's some really good, important stuff to see him out there. He's out at county fairs. He's going out and meeting people. We're going to talk to him about this little top 10 list that he put together, 10 things that I'll do for Ohio. We're going to talk to him about that at 8 o'clock. So that's just what's coming up. And I really am looking forward to talking to Vivek. But I asked you what some of your questions are. A lot of those were about that. In fact, I've got a couple of them here that I don't want to belabor it at this particular point. The first one I got was from Jimbo last night that says or that asked, what are we going to do, or what is he going to do about ICE in the state of Ohio? Is he going to give increased ability for ICE to deport given recent Supreme Court rulings? He said, will Vivek continue supporting deportation as the Trump administration keeps winning and making deportation possible? I can tell you the answer to that before he even comes on with me this morning. The answer is yes. He is going to end sanctuary city status. It's one of the promises that he has made, and it's also on his X account. And it's a really, really important question. He talked about Ohio's big blue cities. Do I even have that one? I might even have that one somewhere. Maybe not. Is it on no, it's not on the Vivek for Ohio page, but I saw it somewhere and I'll try to find it again. I'm kind of bebopping around here with a lot of things, but Ohio's big blue cities are sanctuary cities. Oh, you know what it was? It was a Facebook post, I think. Yeah, here it is. I can share this tip with you. Yeah, so this was just on Vivek's Facebook page. I'll end the practice of sanctuary cities in Ohio if I'm elected, full stop. The rule of law is fundamental to our country, and we cannot abandon it in our cities. That was the line, and that's extraordinarily important, obviously. Matter of fact, I could probably throw this one out there too, just on the good news front. This one has nothing to do with Vivek specifically, but how are deportations going? Let's check in with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, on that. Where'd you go? There we go. Much higher pace, much faster pace than 2025.
Because we're enforcing the laws, it's inhumane somehow. What's inhumane about taking care of our kids? As a father of 6 with 3 young girls, I will do whatever I have to do. I will move heaven and hell to go find these kids. And guess what? The same individuals that the Democrats want to demonize every single day, which is our law enforcement, is out there doing that job. And I am proud as I can possibly be to sit here as secretary to say, because of our relationship, with DOJ, with HHS, and this administration, we're going to find you. And those that preyed on these young kids, we're going to bring you to justice.
I love that. I love that messaging. And
because we're enforcing the laws.
I think there we go. We'll drop it off there. But I love that messaging. He was marking the 100 days, his first 100 days as Secretary of DHS, of course, replacing Kristi Noem, which is extraordinarily important. And I think he's doing a phenomenal job thus far. Truthfully, I think it's a very big upgrade that we have had at that position. But the most important thing that he was talking about there is the fact that the pace is faster. The deportation pace in 2026 is already much, much further ahead than where it was in 2025. And of course, we are now in June, so we're 6 months in, and the pace is faster. And we kind of knew that was going to be the case. Once the big, beautiful bill got passed, once that funding got done for CBP and for ICE, once that was paid for and confirmed, they were gonna turn everything loose. Tom Homan said it. He said, "We're coming, and don't even bother asking us. We're coming regardless whether you want us there or not." I remember he said that to Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, who said, "We didn't ask for this." He said, "I don't care if you asked for it. We're coming anyway, because this is what our job is enforcing federal law." And the law says you cannot come here illegally, you cannot come here without permission, and you will not be allowed to stay if you do. And that is exactly the point. So really, really important stuff there. Obviously, last week on Friday, my last show of the week that we did last week was all about socialism because of what happened on Tuesday. And I made it a focal point of the newsletter this week, too. If you did not receive the Sunday briefing yesterday morning at 6 a.m., you got to get in. Send me an email to bob@strictlyspeaking.org, and I will add you in. We added several hundred new subscribers from Houston, Texas last week because I was doing radio in Houston, and good folk down there. Really, really good, strong, conservative folks, especially that because they're trapped in a big blue city. Houston is a really, really majority left-wing city, but the conservatives down there, they flock to shows like the one I was sitting in for, and they all want to be a part of what we're doing here as well. So if there are any new viewers or followers watching from Houston right now on our live stream, thank you and welcome. I appreciate the chance to talk to you after doing the radio with you last week. But also the newsletter. A ton of people subscribe to the newsletter, and I made sure to welcome them in yesterday's newsletter, in which we focused again a lot on socialism for all of the right reasons. It is understand the word existential. It means we're talking about our literal survival, our existence. It is an existential threat to this republic. And it is shocking to me. It is stunning to me. It is terrifying to me, and it's personally embarrassing to me that we're talking about this fundamental existential threat to the republic now as we get ready to commemorate the 250th birthday of this republic. I don't know if it's coincidence. I don't know if it was planned this way. I don't know if the long game has kind of borne this out, but the fact that socialists, and you notice we're not using the modifier. We're not using the democratic socialists label that the DSA, which is an organization, the Democratic Socialists of America, they think that putting Democrat in front of socialist makes it somehow acceptable in our two-party system of government because part of the country is Democrat. Oh, Democrat socialist, so it's okay. We've all seen the meme. The steaming pile of dog crap, socialism. And then the steaming pile of dog crap with sprinkles on it, democratic socialism. It's still crap, and it's still dangerous. And it literally is a threat. When you see not only Mamdani winning, but when you see Katie Wilson winning out in Seattle, and you see one of the two in the runoff after they stole it from Spencer Pratt in Los Angeles, when you see there's going to be at least 3 more members who are socialists of Congress in 2027. And they are empowered and they are fired up by the wins that they keep getting. They think they are on the verge of literally replacing capitalism with socialism as an economic model and replacing freedom with socialism as a systemic crushing it's what socialism has always been described as. It's what Orwell described it as in 1984. It's a boot heel on the neck of the people. And this is all coming down at a time when we're celebrating freedom because 250 years ago, we declared our freedom. We declared our independence from tyranny and then fought for it. 250 years, and now we're on the verge of losing it. It's embarrassing. If this happens on our watch, none of us can or will ever rest easy in our graves. We cannot allow that to be the case. That's what we fight back against. All right, before we bring in our first guest, I want to remind everybody about our wonderful partners at Americans for Prosperity, and I want to say thank you to them. AFP is a primary sponsor and partner of this program. They are supportive of everything we do, both the show, the live stream, as well as the Sunday morning briefing, and I want to say thank you to AFP Ohio, and I want to encourage you to support AFP Ohio. AFP, well, they've got a four-pronged approach to making Ohio the best Buckeye state it can be, fixing and improving in economic opportunity, educational freedom, energy abundance, and government accountability. Find an AFP chapter near you and get into a meeting. Go and volunteer. See how you can help. BuckeyeBlueprint.com is the website. Check it out for yourself. BuckeyeBlueprint.com. Find out how you can volunteer, because all of the change that we can make begins at the local level. It does not begin at the federal level. It's not about just writing your congressman or yelling at President Trump. What can you do in your community? AFP Ohio is helping to do that. Go to BuckeyeBlueprint.com, BuckeyeBlueprint.com. And thank you, AFP, for your partnership and your support of Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. All right, I do see my guest in the room. She is in the green room, and so I want to bring her up now and say good morning and welcome to our friend Amanda Suffolk. Amanda is there. She is a little off center there. I don't know if you can slide over just a little.
Yeah, I can. Hold on.
There we go. Amanda Suffolk, good morning. How are you?
I am well. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you. And for those who do not know about your status, being on the board of the NRA and also the host of, I think I can put this on the screen too. There it is. Eye on the Target Radio. Amanda Suffolk, it's so good to talk to you again. It's been since Houston, I guess, right? In April?
Yeah, it has. It has.
Yeah. So that was fantastic. What a phenomenal event. Are you guys getting good feedback from the from Voices of 2A?
We are. I mean, because we gave a lot of opportunity to a lot of different people. That's why it's called Voices, to talk about the Second Amendment and where they are and how they talk. And so it's really a good thing, because when you really look at how people consume their information, it used to be that you'd be driving down the road and you turn the radio dial. Now everybody gets it on demand. And so they don't find new people unless they're guests on somebody else's show, or unless they have an event like we had, which was Voices, to put people out there to cross promote and to allow people to consume that information from different like-minded or like type things. So everybody was different, but they're all headed in the same direction.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe that too. And different voices are needed, and more voices are needed, especially who are all people who are all rowing the same direction. But yeah, we have to reach out to people in different venues and different mediums, and that's what this is all about. So I was glad to be a part of that, honored to be a part of that, and hopefully it's only going to grow from here. So Amanda, you reached out to me last week about an article that was in the Akron Beacon Journal. And let me see if I can put this up on the screen real quick, at least the headline. I've read it enough times that I can't go back now and read the rest of it because they put it behind a paywall.
Right.
Of course, as if I'm going to pay to read anything from this freaking thing. But the Akron Beacon Journal ran an op-ed. It was from their editorial board, Curbing Gun Violence in Akron Beyond City's Control. And I can tell people, because I have read it, and you can tell people more about it. They had a shooting in Highland Square, and they've had several drive-by shootings, and they kind of attribute it not to the behavior of the people, not to the culture, not to the determination of criminal thugs to do criminal thuggish type things. It's the presence of guns. It's the existence of the guns that they say are the reasons for the number of shootings going on in Akron, and that's what we need to tackle. And I guess this is right in your wheelhouse, is it not, NRA board member Amanda Suffolk?
Well, I was reading it. I mean, it came across, and I started reading it, and I was like, What a pile of poo. I mean, we'll just start right there, because it just kind of started out and it says, oh, the temperatures are getting hot. So then tempers are getting short, and gun violence is a national issue. And that's really it. It has nothing to do with crime. It has nothing to do with criminals. It has nothing to do with gangs. It has nothing to do with the fact that we don't arrest people, we spank them and put them back out, and that we explain why they're acting badly as an excuse for allowing them to act badly. And when I first started reading it, the first time it came up, because every time it comes up from the Akron Beacon Journal, because of their paywall, you were kind of referring to that, it went in to say something about the editorial board who actually wrote it, that they are regional experts on facts and information. And it was like, that was another steaming pile of poo. And so when the two came together, I was like, I'm going to call Bob France and I'm going to see if he's seen this, because I just wanted to get your opinion of this.
Yeah, well, my opinion is very similar to your steaming pile. I spent a little time before you came on, talking about that, and it is true what you said about how they started it out. Oh, the temperatures rise in the summer, and that leads to these kind of things. And I'm thinking to myself, I got really, really hot yesterday, and it didn't make me want to go out and commit a crime with my gun. It didn't make me want to go out and drive by anybody. I'm kind of thinking that maybe this temperature thing and this summertime thing is a little bit overblown here, because I am no more desirous of going out and committing crimes in the summer than I am in the dead of freaking Northeast Ohio winter. Obviously, Amanda, what they're doing is just continue. In fact, let me ask you this way. Mm-hmm. As the host of Eye on the Target Radio and NRA and everything else, how do you characterize or categorize, or what do you think of when you hear the words gun crime?
Well, we'll start there. So crime is crime. Crime is committed by criminals. Crime is not committed by a gun, nor is it committed. Actually, I do my shows on Sunday night. And so last night we did a whole story about a guy with an axe, right? Crime is the thing, and whatever they pick to do it with is the tool. And so for some reason, they have picked guns which they're neither good nor bad, can be used for good or evil, some comic book line right there. And they have decided to vilify it in the explanation as to why people are innocent and the tools are really the thing that's plotting against society.
Thank you. I knew I could count on you. I didn't plan that, but I knew what you would say, because you're a reasonable, common, sensible person. And it really bothers me when I continue to see in headlines in news all the time, in articles like this in the Beacon Journal and anywhere else, gun crime on the rise, gun crime. And I hate the phrase. There's no such thing as gun crime, because a gun has never committed a crime in any of its existence, because it's an inanimate object. It is people who commit crimes. And whether you're stabbing people, trying to behead people like you see in the UK, the number of knife crimes, are they knife crimes? No, they're crimes. They're violent crimes committed with a knife, a gun, an axe, as you talked about on your show last night, whatever it is. But people use the term gun crime to demonize guns. And Amanda, what I also said before you came on, and if you want to expound upon it, that would be great. The idea that because there are a lot more people choosing guns to commit crimes, that we should respond to that by taking guns away from non-criminals, people who are law-abiding, is like saying that there has been a real spike in the last 6 months in drunk driving. Maybe just in the last month, because as the temperatures rise, more people want to go out there and drive drunk and smash into other people and harm people. So therefore, this car crime is really got to stop. So we're going to take cars away from people who don't drive drunk and commit crimes with them, because that'll make it safer for everybody. I mean, is that not about the same logic as let's crack down on the Second Amendment because of gun crime increasing?
Well, we as Americans have kind of used this logic. We pick out who the enemy is, and then we start to build a story around them or around it, whatever it may be. And so guns have been one of those chosen enemies. And so everything then is plotted it's sort of like if there's something that you know that you dislike, every time you hear it, it triggers you, if you will. And so they have tried to make guns that thing. And so I look at it, and when people talk to me about, wouldn't it be safer if we didn't have guns? I was like, no, the bad guy is bigger, stronger, and faster than I am. He gets to pick the time and the place that he decides if he's going to choose me as his victim. The only thing that I get to choose is my tool of self-defense, the amount of training that I have with that tool, and whether or not the government actually allows me to have it. Those are the only things that I get to choose. And so I choose a gun because it levels the playing field. It's really as simple as that.
That's a great way to say it too. It does level the playing field. And, I like to think, in the UK, do they teach people to be proficient at knife fighting? Because, they do you know what I mean by that? I mean, obviously, firearms are banned there. And so you have a whole bunch of knife crimes. And I'm thinking to myself, someone like you, or someone like my wife or my daughter, if somebody is threatening them with a knife, how are you supposed to defend yourself unless you have your own knife and now, okay, let's get it on in a knife fight? The reason why firearms were invented is to protect yourself from a distance. So you don't actually have to either be into a blade fight or an edged weapon fight. I guess spears and arrows probably came first, but the idea is to protect yourself without getting harmed. I mean, is that really what they want? Is the goal here to take away the one thing that, as you just described, levels the playing field?
Well, if you look at what's happening in Europe, I mean, as truly as an example, they started with, they took away the guns, and then the knife crimes picked up. So there are a lot of stories as you research and as you dig, there's a lot of stories of regular civilians buying chainmail that they wear under their business clothes as they walk on the streets to keep from random stabbings as they walk down the street. Literally, that is it. Now there is a program out there that you'll see on buildings and on dumpsters. It says, save a life, turn in a knife. So now they are trying to recall and turn in all knives, including like steak knives. So where are we going with this? How ridiculous is it? Let's start and go back to the criminals. So if you really dig a little deeper into that article, there's so many misconceptions that they tossed into it. And one of them was like on halfway through it was that more than 40,000 deaths a year, they attributed to homicides. And it's really not. I mean, it's still a huge number. It's 23,000 that are homicide murders. But of the number that they are touting out, 62% of deaths from a firearm are suicides. So maybe we ought to spend some more time on suicides, on societal problems to cause people to not want to commit suicide. Do programs like Hold Your Gun and, the different suicide prevention programs. Those would all actually potentially change and shift the dynamic. The other one is 51% of those who are murdered with a firearm are young Black males, which is a huge percentage compared to where they are in overall society. So African Americans are 13% of the United States population, yet 51% are those who are the victims of a homicide. Maybe, and they're the young ones, 15 to 34. Maybe we need to get involved in those communities. Maybe we need to save the lives. Not maybe, we absolutely need to save the lives of young Americans, and we need to figure out how and get involved in it. Maybe we ought to look at cities. Maybe we ought to look at crimes. Maybe we ought to look at gangs. Maybe we ought to look at where the demographics are showing us that our young people are being killed. And maybe we ought to address those areas and those crimes and those things instead of just grouping it all together and saying guns are bad.
That's a phenomenal point, and it's one that's been well documented, I think, too, when we're talking about what really is, and the number of young Black people shooting and killing other young Black people, like Chicago, for example, or on the Juneteenth weekend, last weekend, they had what was the number, 39 or 40 or something like that, shootings, and all of them were black on black, most of it gang related, and that tends to skew the numbers obviously dramatically, proving once again that law-abiding citizens are not the problem here. And it's a real shame that we don't address the real root cause of what is behind that. And it's not the presence of the guns; it is the presence of the gangs and the new members and so on and so forth. And you are no doubt familiar, Amanda Sufcool, with John Lott's book, More Guns, Less Crime.
Correct.
And that's an important thing I want you to talk about if you can, because again, going back to the article in question that you and I are speaking about right now in the Akron Beacon Journal, I'm going to read this. The U.S. has more guns than people, according to data from World Population Review. Though we have less than 5% of the world's population, we hold about 46% of civilian-owned guns globally. We are in the 93rd percentile of all countries for firearm mortalities. And among large, wealthy countries, the U.S. ranks first in firearm homicide rates and overall firearm death rates by many times. And you correctly pointed out some of that is suicide, which is, if somebody doesn't have a gun and they're bound and determined to take their life, they're going to do it in another way. But square those stats as far as our number of guns and the number of gun homicides and where we rank globally, square that with John's premise, which is very meticulously researched, that the more guns there are, actually, the less crime actually happens.
Well, I can't speak for Dr. John Lott. He's amazing. And the amount of stuff that's in his head. I have a friend who just kind of looked at him one day, kind of held him by his little ears and said, "Does your brain hurt? Because it ought to hurt, right?" Because there's so much stuff inside his head. But
for those who have not read it, by the way, get his book. It's called More Guns, Less Crime, and he's written some companion articles to it through the years, updating the numbers, including one just this year where he is specific about that. But please continue.
Or go to his website, crimeresearch.org. And not that we're doing a John Lott commercial, but John Lott is pretty amazing. Crimeresearch.org, go to his website, look up the stuff. I mean, there's just so much information there, absolutely so much. One of the things that I caught at one point as it kind of flittered by, as you're consuming so much of this information, so much of this news, is that it is really like 5 locations that are the size of an Ohio township that have the super majority of crime. And if you could go into those 5 communities and solve their crime problem, you could take the United States way down in the numbers and the comparison. And then remember that there is so many different ways that numbers are, what do they say? Liars figures lie and liars figure, because of how you slice and dice the statistics. So I'm not saying I don't believe it, but I'm saying that if you research it, you will find that there are times, and Dr. John Lott actually rolled some of this out maybe 6 months ago, that the FBI statistics were not being modified this year and last year, but they were being modified for prior years to make this year's numbers, or whatever the president was looking for. He was looking at prior presidency, if you will, to make their numbers do what they wanted them to do. So they would move the numbers up, move the numbers down to make it look like crime was up or crime was down based on prior things. So it's very hard to say where the United States truly ranks amongst the rest of the world, given that the statistics are the way that they are. Pull out 62% of the suicides of the gun crimes, gun homicides, or gun deaths. You'll see that. There's just so much of that kind of information, misinformation, that is taken and then relayed again and then fed back to you as citing themselves as a reference, that makes it so hard if you're not digging into it.
Yeah, Amanda, another point on this, in the article by the Akron Beacon Journal that we're talking about here, trying to blame guns and the existence of the Second Amendment for all of the violence in that city. They spoke of some of the technology. Quote, "It's unlikely our founding fathers could have predicted the extent of technology we possess today, between the ability to convert firearms to automatic weapons with a switch to DEI guns that can be produced with 3D printers. Firearms are more accessible and deadly than they were when the Second Amendment was written into our nation's identity." Do you think that the technology and the advancement of weaponry in 2026 mattered when they wrote this back in 1787 when it was all done?
Well, in 1787, pretty much everyone owned a gun, everyone. And most of them were hand built. So when you look at the Kentucky rifle, the Pennsylvania rifle, the fact that this is the gun that fed the family, defended the family, protected the family, all of those types of things, you didn't go anywhere without a gun. Because not only were there bad guys, but then there were things, animals that intended to eat you, right? There were people who intended to harm you. So I think that they're, well, I know that they're wrong. And then they roll out, you know, the semi-auto and all of that kind of stuff. There were repeating rifles at that point. There were guns that were designed to fire more. So when they roll out, look at the Supreme Court right now. I mean, you're seeing it. In 2022, the Bruin decision came out that talked about history, text, and tradition. Anything in the Second Amendment prior to that came after 1791 that wasn't around in 1791 is unconstitutional as the Second Amendment is written. And they are fighting that because they cannot restrict us the way that they want to. You look at the Supreme Court decision that just came out, the dissent that just came out this week for Wolford from Ketanji Brown Jackson, as she's talking about, oh, well, there were gun laws in the 1860s that we want to cite. The problem is 1860 was a whole lot further forward in history than 1791. So it doesn't meet the standard, yet she wants to still use it. The second part is that it was part of the Black Code intended to disarm all African Americans. So the only sitting female African American wants to cite Black Code as the reason why she wants to disarm Americans. I don't know if anybody else sees the humor in that, but I'm like, what? Really?
I didn't know that, and
yes.
that is amazing.
So when you start looking at all of this, it's like, hold steady, kids. So these things where they sit here and they tell us, oh, well, we didn't have them then, so we shouldn't have them now. From a journalist, so using their analogy, saying that, oh, well, we now have 3D printed guns. Well, it used to be you make your own. We now have more semi-autos or switches or full auto stuff. We shouldn't have that. Okay. They didn't have typewriters. They didn't have computers. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have so you better go back to running that mimeograph machine and standing on the corner selling your newspaper for a penny. That's what you ought to do based on your explanation.
That's a great response. And you know what? The fact that the founders did not necessarily know about all of those different ways of communications, the ones you just described, and yet the freedom of speech, nobody is saying the First Amendment should be changed or should be amended in some way, amend that amendment, because we're allowed to express ourselves online now. They didn't know what online meant. Bottom line is, and we can wrap it with this, Amanda, basically what the founders wanted with the Second Amendment is to make sure that the people had every right to protect themselves that the government does. And that there should not be, in other words, what the government is allowed to arm itself with, we should be allowed to arm ourselves with. Now, there may be some common sense restrictions to that, such as, private citizen ownership of a tank. I don't know if that's, how that should be viewed. But the bottom line is, as the government's weaponry has advanced, they have the ability, if they chose, the way, in 1776, when we declared our independence, if they chose to enact tyranny against the people, we should have every right. That's what, shall not be infringed, to fight back with the same thing that they have. Ultimately, as weapons technology has advanced for the government, it has to have advanced for the people as well in order for the Second Amendment to mean what they intended.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in that time in the past, you could own your own warship. You could own you could own any of those things. And I believe that you can sort of, I don't know that you can own a military style jet, but some of the rest of that stuff, you can kind of still own it.
Yeah, well, and again, that was the point here. Is the point is that the people are to truly protect themselves, not only from threats from other persons with bad intentions, some of their community members and so forth, and some of the things that we're talking about here, but if it's to protect ourselves against enemies, foreign and domestic, against anybody who might be threatening us from outside or from within, then they have to remain, shall not be infringed. It has to be uninhibited, our rights to protect ourselves. And I'm so glad you pointed out this article in the Beacon Journal, because it really is just kind of a compendium of all of the ridiculous arguments that the anti-gun zealots, and that's what I call them, the anti-gun zealots, come up with here, and you're able to dismantle them point by point. So any last thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you very much for allowing me on, and thank you for everything that you're doing. I mean, Northeastern Ohio is so much better because you were on the airwaves.
Oh, that is very nice of you to say. Where can people watch and consume Eye on the Target Radio?
So Eye on the Target Radio is not only a live radio show on Sunday evenings, primarily, it's really crazy, primarily on the West Coast. It is much more popular on the West Coast than it is here in our home state. But then it's turned right into a podcast as of the following morning. So you can catch it anywhere that you get your podcasts.
Beautiful. That's what I wanted to find out. Amanda Suffolk, host of Eye on the Target Radio and also board member of the NRA. Thank you so much. Keep fighting the fight. We appreciate you very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you got it. There you go. Thanks to Amanda. That was really, really important stuff. That article in the Akron Beacon Journal. Again, it's not an article. It's an opinion piece by the editorial board. There is really embarrassing, and the same old anti-gun propaganda that we have seen everywhere. They just kind of assemble it all in one place to try to say, the city has taken positive steps toward harm reduction after the Highland Square shooting, including working with businesses to close bars early and continue to enforce early parking lot closures in the neighborhood. Okay, that's important. But again, how about we focus on the culture, not the businesses? It's not the business's fault. It's the culture of the people who are committing these crimes. It's the culture of the people who are taking their guns and taking them out to bars, and they're taking them out to crowded places and at times when no good is going to come. It is not about the weapon. It is not gun crime. It is human crime, and the human beings who are making those decisions are the ones that we should be focusing on. I don't think there's any question about that any longer. So good stuff by Amanda Suffolk. Hey, I want to take a moment and welcome to say thank you, I should say, to our friend Mark King once again at Keeping Medicare Simple, and thank him for his unfailing support for Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Mark has been, he's been a client of mine and a friend of mine and a partner of mine for over 5 years. So for over 5 years, I've been sending people to him to do what he's been doing for nearly 40 years himself. And that is to figure out their Medicare, to make sure that they can get the best possible policy for the lowest possible price, the most services, the most options for the best price. That's what Keeping Medicare Simple is all about. Medicare isn't simple. It's complex and it's confusing. People don't know if they're in the best plan or not. So here's what you do. If you are on Medicare now, call Mark at 440-832-8936. If you are not on Medicare, here's what you do. Call Mark at 440-832-8936. If you're aging in, you want to get into the right plan right from the start. Call Mark, ask him what the options are in your area, Northeast Ohio in particular, and he will take great care of you as he has, again, for people nearly 40 years. The website is keepingmedicaresimple.com, keepingmedicaresimple.com. And again, that phone number is 440-832-8936. You don't have to wait until it's an enrollment period. You can call him now and consult with him to make sure that you have the right information and hit the ground running during the next opportunity to change. 440-832-8936. Thank you to Mark King for his unfailing support for our venture. By the way, I fully expect Mike to be at the Brecksville Community Center tonight. I will be there along with Peter Kirsanow. This is Monday. For those who are watching this on replay later on, sorry. But Monday the 29th of June, we will be at the Brecksville Community Center at, let's see, 7 o'clock for the Seven Hills Republican Club meeting. And it's actually being co-hosted by some other groups too, including Cuyahoga Valley Republicans and Parma, I think, Republicans, and maybe another group. Anyway, we expect a really good crowd at the Brecksville Center. So if you're watching us live right now and you didn't know about our presentation tonight, I hope you will be there. It'll be a great opportunity for us to kind of hammer out some really, really important information as we are, 5 days away now from celebrating our 250th anniversary, or birthday, if you will, as a country. And what is it going to take to protect it from being destroyed? Existential threats exist. And Peter and I are both going to be presenting tonight, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing you there if you can be there. And I'll tell you what, the chances are it will all be recorded. And if you can't be there, maybe I'll get them to give me the recording and I'll play it back for you on an upcoming episode of the show. I want to dive into, as we wait for Vivek Ramaswamy, who is our next guest and who will hopefully be the next governor of the state of Ohio. Let me just kind of pop in and see if we have any questions for Vivek. I know a lot of people did when I posted the preview of the show today. And it looks like a lot of people are all on the Second Amendment because of our conversation with Amanda. So that's great. I appreciate it. But we're going to be joined by Vivek Ramaswamy literally in just a moment or two. And I know you've got questions, and a lot of people have questions. I shared with you in the the opening part of our monologue this morning, Vivek's X feed. He is making his way through the rural communities. He is going to county fairs. He is going all over Ohio to reach the people where they are, which of course is extraordinarily important. And I know a lot of people have said they really want to see Vivek Ramaswamy do more with the grassroots and to get out there. And you can see there's his website, vivekforohio.com, vivekforohio.com. They want to be able to get a chance to talk to him about the things that are the most important to him. And as this campaign moves on, and we're about 4 months or so away from the election, they're hoping to get more specifics from him on what he is going to do in the state of Ohio for people, again, at the very local levels. And I can tell you this from, researching and following his campaign, he's dedicated to all of the things that are the most important to you. All of the questions that I took yesterday from people who said, yeah, here's what I want to ask Vivek, I guarantee he's ready to answer, and he is already answering them. So we're looking forward to it. Yeah, I see him in the green room now. There we go. So let's welcome Ohio's next governor. God willing, he will be Ohio's next governor, Vivek Ramaswamy, joining us now on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Vivek, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good to see you, Bob. How you doing?
Good to see you too. It's been a little bit. I appreciate that. I'm great. Thank you. I'm great. How are you feeling right now where you are roughly 4 months out?
I feel great. I'm very grateful for just thinking about politics, even aside, grateful for everything this year. It's been a blessed year with the birth of our daughter. She's, 4.5 months at this point. My older son is going to be turning 6 years old. My middle son's going to be turning 5 in a few days. Family's doing great, healthy. We're grateful for this opportunity to be traveling the state, often doing it together. And it's been, really a life-changing experience in the best of ways. So I feel good personally. Politically speaking, as a race, I also feel good because I know we're so committed to winning this. And I know the people of Ohio have the sense to really be governed as a conservative state rather than a socialist one. So by November, I'm confident we'll be in a good spot. But it is a competitive race. There's no doubt about it. It's a midterm year. You look at states that went for Donald Trump across the country, right? I mean, other states are probably that went red in 24 are probably in a tougher spot than we are in Ohio. But even in Ohio, it is going to be a challenging midterm year that we can't take for granted. But I am confident things will work out for the best.
Well, I'm confident too. I think Ohio voters are smart enough to see through Amy Acton and what the Democrats bring to the table, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But first of all, congratulations. There's nothing like being a girl dad, by the way. I can tell you that from firsthand experience. So congratulations to you on your daughter and the expansion of your family. That's wonderful. So from the standpoint of campaigning, I asked a lot of my friends and others who are, relatively active in Ohio conservative politics. I would say conservative politics rather than Republican politics, because sometimes, sadly, they don't go together. But I've asked them, what do you want to know from Vivek Ramaswamy? I'm getting a chance to talk to him tomorrow for the first time in a few months. What do you want to know? And one of the things people said, Vivek, as I kind of said as I introduced you, is they want to know if you're coming to the events. I see you going to the fairs, which is an answer. But are you coming to the Medina County Friends and Neighbors, the places to meet the groups where they are, rather than kind of doing the broad scope campaigning, coming down to meet the people where they are? They feel like they haven't seen enough of you in the local communities. Is that something you're prioritizing?
It's an absolute priority. In fact, I think I'm the only candidate who's been to all 88 counties, most of them many times over. But Bob, I love that spirit, by the way. I think that's great. I love when we have engaged grassroots activists, voters who actually care enough to demand that. I think the challenge is that there's still 11.8 million people in the state. And, I think on a reasonable year where I'm out there across all 88 counties, we may see 50,000 of them. Okay, so just doing that math, that it's a tiny portion of the electorate, but we're seeing hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people across the state. I'm trying to do it in smaller settings, right? We went on Saturday, right? I've got 3 kids here at home. I told you they had their days off from camp. Nonetheless, I got out in the morning, Saturday morning, went to Zanesville, then went to Belmont County. We're talking about meeting small groups of people, 10, 20, 30 people at a time. So in that type of intimate setting, obviously I'm not going to, be able to meet in person all the time, all 11.8 million people, or even all of the engaged grassroots activists and supporters. But yeah, I mean, you look at where we've been, you've probably seen our map, our campaign has it. You can see my social media feed. We've been all 88 counties multiple times over and will continue to, particularly small towns and rural communities. And that's important to me because the success of Ohio has to include the success of every part of Ohio, not just Columbus, not just the 3 Cs. We've probably done more Lincoln Day dinners for the Republican Party than ever any Republican candidate for governor has done. Probably all of them combined in the 21st century have not done as many of them as I've done. And then I know there are those who will say, well, I'm not part of the Republican Party. I'm a grassroots conservative. And that's great, too. We're going to a lot of those. We're doing Northwest Ohio. We're doing a grassroots roundtable, I think tomorrow afternoon in Northwest Ohio outside of Toledo. But my only entreaty back to all of the well-intentioned allies across the state is let's do it together. And if we're having an event and it is labeled as a GOP event, okay, GOP is not a bad word. Okay, we're shaping the Republican Party to be the conservative party in Ohio. Who would have ever thought, right? Novel idea. But come out to those events as well. And we're working with this in a one-team mentality. And one of the things about me is I try to run this campaign and I'll try to lead Ohio in never filtering questions or never screening the questions I do or don't take. And if you look at the events that Amy Acton does, my other ask to our fellow loving conservatives here is at some point we also have to, all of us, myself included, get our heads out of the sand and address reality. Okay, that's staring us in the face. We've got the biggest contrast between 2 candidates running for governor ever in the history of our state. In me, we have the most conservative governor that our state will have ever had. And there are a lot in our grassroots community who would say, well, that's too low of a bar, okay? Knowing the kind of leadership they believe they've seen from Ohio. And I would say that, okay, that's fine, but I'm still going to be by far the most conservative governor our state has ever seen in our history. And I'm running against a woman who would be, bar none, the first socialist governor our state will have ever seen. And I'm not in this as a hobby, right? So politics is not a hobby for me. Politics in this state is a calling. It is a moral mission. And so I'd ask everyone else to approach it with that same perspective. This isn't a hobby. This isn't fun and games. This isn't checking boxes. This is a moral mission to save and to, dare I say, protect our state from a wave of socialism that is sweeping our country on the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence. Look at what Spanberger's doing in Virginia. Look at what Amy Acton's saying. It's like almost Spanberger on steroids, socialism 2.0 in disguise, forgiveness of medical debt, hiking government spending to the equivalent to doubling the state income tax rate, You got socialists sweeping in New York, Minnesota, California. If we think that can't come to Ohio, we're sleeping. We're asleep at the switch. That's a joke. It absolutely could come to states across the country, including Ohio. And this particular woman showed your true colors when she shut down this state, leading Ohio to be the first state in the country to shut down public schools. Speaking of the county fairs I'm going to, she tried to shut down county fairs while letting BLM riots run rampant in the cities of our and the streets of our cities in our state, claiming that the science didn't support the county fairs, but somehow the science supported BLM protests packed on the streets. This is a committed socialist, every bit of the kind that you see in New York City sweeping the Democratic Socialist ticket. The only difference is at least give those people credit. They're at least honest about where they stand. She's trying to obfuscate and hide the ball. But back to us, Bob. Am I going to be going to all 88 counties, rural counties, going to local townships and small towns across the state? Yeah, because I already am. I've been doing it for the last year and a half, and I'm going to keep doing it. But for our friends and allies, I'll ask you with me to step up and see the truth for what it is. To remember Thomas Jefferson, who signed Ohio into the Union, who signed the Declaration of Independence 250 years ago, who's at least often credited with saying, the government you elect is the government you deserve. The government we elect is the government we deserve. So to me, this isn't a hobby. Okay, I'm not doing this for fun. I promise you this, and I know that our grassroots, one of the reasons I connect with so many of them when we do meet in person is, A, I consider myself part of it, and B, I believe in that same level of candor in both directions. And what I would say is, put yourself in my shoes. Okay, why am I doing this? Why is someone like me doing this? I've lived the American dream at a scale that I couldn't have imagined 40 years ago. And my dad grew up in a rural village in a communist state in Southwest India with minimal electricity and access to clean water. My mom, in similarly humble circumstances, moved halfway around the world to Cincinnati. My dad worked at GE for a 5-figure salary for most of a multi-decade career. My mom took care of nursing home patients in greater Cincinnati, worked at the VA. I couldn't go to private schools till I was in high school. My parents sent me to a public school through 8th grade. I'm grateful for the experience. Wasn't a particularly known to be an exceptional one. Then I went to St. X for high school. Fast forward a few years, I'm able to found multi-billion-dollar businesses, God willing, in a position to lead this state where I was born and raised. I'm running for governor because that story is only possible in the United States of America. And I'm grateful to this state for giving me those opportunities that would not have been available to a kid like me in any other country on planet Earth, probably even in human history. That's why I'm running. But if you put yourself in my shoes, it's not for fame or fortune, Bob. You don't get the comforts of being governor, if I'm able to put that in air quotes. Our family has been so blessed that this is not a calling for comfort. I get nothing out of this. Okay, I'm not making, a lot of people go into politics to make millions afterwards. I'm not making millions. I'm spending millions, tens of millions of dollars on this of my family who's hard-earned money. There's only reason you do this is because you care and because you think you can have an impact. And I'm a committed conservative, it so happens. And I believe that this state's going to be better off if we're governed as the conservative state that we are. Mm-hmm. So are we going to come to the communities? Yes. Come see us. We'll come see you. I can't get to all 11.8 million in person, but just that it isn't a hobby for me. It isn't a hobby for any of us. This is a moral calling. And if every person who shares our values comes out and votes, we win this thing. And if not, we're going to be a socialist state. That's the choice. As Jefferson admonished, the government we elect is the government we deserve. That's just some real talk for you, Bob.
I'm glad you're talking about socialism and about Amy Acton's lean in toward that. It's really, really important. She may not be a professed member of the DSA, if you will, but her actions say
it's worse. It's worse because if you're a professed member of the DSA, at least the public knows where you stand.
True.
The worst part about her is she genuflects. It's the equivalent of like a Gavin Newsom type here, actually. She genuflects, but tries to have it both ways. But the genuflecting is what? She's proposed a spending package that our legislators already have tabulated at costing the equivalent of doubling our state income tax at a time when families are actually pressed. And the problem with socialism and the kind of socialist solutions she advances, economically speaking, is that they hurt the very people they were purported to help. When the government prints more money, that causes asset prices to go up at the federal level and the equivalent when they spend that money at the state level. And yet the people who are fine with that are people who own assets like stocks or whatever, but people whose main asset is their home have to pay 3 times more in property tax bills when their cash payments from Social Security, or for that matter, pensions or wages even, stay flat.
Right.
That's the root of the property tax crisis in the state. Why are kids performing poorly in the public schools? Again, it was a decision made by Amy Acton to shut down the public schools while private schools remained open, now complaining about inequality of outcomes between public schools that they shut down versus private schools that didn't shut down. So these people hurt the very people
Let
they
me
purport to help.
let me interrupt on that for a second,
Yeah.
if I may, Vivek, only because when I run into obstacles with respect to your candidacy, because I support you and have from the beginning, and everybody
Sure.
knows that, people will say to me, how can he condemn and criticize Acton for everything she did during COVID, which of course was, abysmal. It was devastating
Because I
to so
opposed
many
it?
businesses.
Yeah.
But they say, hey, he was on the governor's COVID response team too. They say that all the time. I'm sure you've heard it. Can you give them a response that will clarify that?
Yeah, I don't need to clarify. I need to give a clear answer. Think, people. Okay, think. Why am I doing this? It's because I see that I couldn't move the needle from the sidelines, all right? I was a voice. You could get John Huston on this program. He'd tell you the same thing. The only thing I did was to get on the phone with him a few times. There was no body or meeting room where I was in with Amy Acton. Forget about that. John Husted would call me for advice, and I gave him the advice. Reopen the economy. Take the steps that you possibly could as quickly as you could reasonably to reopen the economy. And I believe he was a voice for that as well. The problem is Amy Acton held the keys to the kingdom. And there's a few events along the way, Bob, that really opened my eyes to get off the sidelines and say, you got to get in the game. I mean, for me, life's easy. I've made money, as Amy Acton will remind you every year. I've built multi-billion-dollar businesses. I'll remind her I was not born a billionaire or a millionaire or an anything heir. Okay. I was born an heir to nothing, but I've achieved the things I have through successful businesses I've built. Why am I getting off the sidelines? I've been a donor to the Republican Party, including of this state. I realized I can't move the needle by sitting on the sidelines. And so did I do my best as an active voice to say, get back and reopen as quickly as possible? Absolutely. And for those with the grassroots, no. Take your Jennifer Grosses of the world, great state representative. Take your Stephanie Stocks of the world, great advocate for medical freedom. These people do their homework. They understand the solutions I was proposing are moving the ball forward towards having reopened the economy more quickly, which Ohio's leadership, because of Amy Acton's hold over it, did not follow. But for me, I say, okay, I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and just be some type of, business voice, some type of outside author of books, some type of donor to the party. No, I'm going to lead this from the front. That's what the state needs, is a businessman and entrepreneur at the top. But I can only do this. I come back to this, Bob. My life's going to be better if I don't win this. Okay, personally speaking. But I don't think the state is going to be okay. I don't think this country is going to be okay. All right, so I'm in this because I have a moral mission to actually govern this state, to be the state that Texas and Florida and Tennessee look up to rather than the other way around. But I need our fellow supporters to think with me about actually why I'm doing this, what positions I have favored and continue to favor, versus the barrel of a socialist cannon that we're facing otherwise. I mean, this is the choice. This is not time for fun and games anymore. All right. We don't have time to mess around. And for those who want to, sit back and ask questions, we've been through this ground. I mean, how many times are we going to do this, Bob? We're sitting here repeating ourselves about some side story BS from the comment threads of some social media echo chamber game, when we actually have in front of us a consequential choice that's going to affect people's lives. All right. Do you believe that boys should compete with girls in girls sports or not? Look at the grants she was writing when she led the Columbus Foundation. Do you believe in actually liberating our economy and cutting red tape and embracing the system of free enterprise and freedom, period, that made America great? Or do you want to go? I mean, you see what Spanberger's doing in Virginia. You see what the Democratic Socialists are doing in New York. Do we want that in Ohio or not? We don't
Yeah,
have time to mess around.
obviously.
This is not a
Ob-
moment
you know,
for
ob-
recreational
obviously,
hobbying.
and you're 100% right about all of those things, Vivek. And again, is it an echo chamber online within the comment section? Yeah, it is. But a lot of people read that and they think to themselves, they haven't heard from you, and that's the reason. And thank you for doing this, by the way.
Yeah, we're going to do a lot of this
because this isn't the biggest podcast in America. So you talk about reaching down to the grassroots, you're reaching down to a whole lot of activist people, myself and the people who follow me included, and wanting to answer those questions for them because they've asked me that question. Let's listen. And so I'm glad you're doing this, and I'm glad you answered that question the way that you just did. Now, there's so many different things that you just covered here too. I want to try to get as many of them in as possible. Let's go back to what you said a few seconds ago about the GOP not being a dirty word. GOP, we like to think is the vehicle for conservatism. Yeah. It hasn't been in the state of Ohio.
I agree.
We've been a very red state. It has not been conservative. We have a governor that did everything you just described Amy Acton did with Mike DeWine's nodding approval. He gave her the keys to the state and let her shut it down. So he is responsible for that. He is also the man that just condemned and criticized the Supreme Court for daring to say the law is the law and temporary means temporary when it comes to, the thousands and thousands of Haitians that live in Ohio and across the country. A man who just vetoed a photo identification for voting bill that was passed overwhelmingly by our General Assembly. So what people want to know, Vivek Ramaswamy, is not just how are you going to be different from Mike DeWine, but very specifically, will you condemn what Mike DeWine has done? He's a Republican, and he is not representing Republican or Ohioans' best interests.
So look, I've had a number of differences of opinion from him. I haven't been shy about saying so. And he's had a number of differences of opinion from me. And with due respect to him, he hasn't been shy about saying so. I'll say a couple things, all right? Number one is, look, do I have the same opinion as the Republican governors who have preceded me on a number of issues? Of course not. If I did, I would just be backing the next person who's in line and claiming the ranks of the Republican Party and backing them to be governor, because then I wouldn't have to do this. But I'm doing this because I think our Republican Party has an opportunity to govern this state actually as the conservative state that we are. As I said, I'm going to be the most conservative governor the state has ever had, bar none. That being said, what I want to be careful of within 4 months of an election, and not me be careful of, I encourage the true conservatives in the state to be careful of, is I'm not running against another Republican. I'm not running against Mike DeWine. I'm running against probably the most leftist governor candidate that our state will have ever seen. And for those who save all of their time and attention to parse the Republican Party without paying attention to the threat we're up against, I would say let's at least for 4 months wake up to where the real threat in front of us actually is. But let's come back to the specifics. I don't need to retrace memory lane. People could go through for the last couple of years. And for those who are curious to ask the armchair questions, the only thing I would say, Bob, is do your homework. I was vocal in think about the bill to keep boys out of girls' sports, think about the bill to prevent transgender surgeries for minors before the age of consent, gender-affirming care, or just surgery for minors who in many cases regret those decisions later on. Many of those kids I've met when they grew up, some of whom now are young girls who can't have children, had a hysterectomy and can't reverse that because they made the decision as a minor. It's unacceptable. I was one of the most vocal people in the state and one of the biggest critics in this state, including of Republicans who stood in the way of passing those laws. So we could go straight down the list and, rehash all of this, Bob, but all I would tell you is we got 4 months left running against a socialist. That's why I'm focused on where I am right now. But any question from the transgender surgery for minors to the boys competing with girls in girls sports, you got those issues from the last year, to yes, temporary status means temporary, not permanent. The idea that you got to, we could go straight down the list. COVID policies. Yeah, I believe we're a conservative state, but I'm not one of these people who's happy just sitting around saying, this is one of the motivators for me. If anybody else like me is a little weary and getting just a little tired of saying, oh, Florida did that or Texas did this, we should be more like them. I agree with you, actually. But I want to go one step further than that. I don't want to just imitate Texas or Florida, though we will in areas where we need to. I want us to quickly become the state that Texas and Florida are trying to imitate rather than the other way around. On the voter ID piece you brought up, this is really important this year.
Yes.
So a couple pieces here. Number one is we have a constitutional amendment on the ballot where President Trump has has weighed in. He's actually gotten surprisingly involved in this in Ohio and weighing in for those who haven't seen it. I believe the same thing he does. We should get that constitutionalized. Okay, a baseline that says you have to have photo ID to vote in Ohio, not just in statute, because some states have put it in statute and seen it reversed later. You have to put it in the state constitution. The voters have a chance to do that this November. That's step one. And step two, you mentioned the measure that was just vetoed, putting that as an express requirement for mail-in voting. Let me double down on that. I'll sign a measure into law that is much stronger than the measure that was just vetoed to make it airtight, to say that no matter how you're voting, you have to show photo ID to vote. And the beauty of the constitutional amendment is it really puts it in the court of the legislature to make that expressly clear. The amendment sets that baseline already, and it says if as authorized by law, what are the exceptions? You got to shut the door by statute. So I understand how these things work. You think, folks like Marcel Sturbich, you think about leaders in the grassroots. He and I have been in touch about the specifics. And so I believe when we're talking about engaging with the grassroots, you've got to be specific. You got to get down into the details. It's not just armchair, emotional therapy here we're going through. Okay, this is purpose driven. It's not a hobby. This is not just conversational therapy. You got to get specific things done. And we want to execute on the issue of election integrity. Here's how you do it. Pass that amendment. That's up to us. You got to show up at the ballot box to constitutionalize that this November. And then if I have it my way, and if I'm governor, I will. In January, I will sign into law shutting the door on any of the leaky eddies to say no matter how you vote, mail-in or otherwise, it's a photo ID to vote in Ohio. That's common sense. If you say it's voter ID to vote, then you can't have a back door to say that if you don't have a voter ID, somehow you can vote. And this increases public trust in the elections, Bob. I mean, this is not, leading edge stuff. This is common sense. And yet, if we do those things, Ohio will have the most secure and the most reason to be trusted secure elections with photo ID laws, the highest level of photo ID laws, more so than any other state in the country, through the combination of the Constitution and the statute that I'll sign. But yeah, keep those specifics coming. That's what I like.
Yeah, that's what I needed to hear, and that's what I think everybody else needed to hear too, specifically about the mail-in voting, because it was the one part of the constitutional amendment, the resolution that is up in the air. So I'm glad to hear you say that. That's what DeWine just vetoed, and everybody wants to hear you say you would have signed it, and you'll even strengthen it.
No. You know what I would have done, and what I will do? Not just signed it. Let's make it even stronger, because you go to the fine print. There are some ways that statute could have been and could be even stronger. Great. In every sort of failure is a silver lining. What we'll do is we'll strengthen that and then we'll sign it. And I want to recognize the grassroots here. I mean, Marcel in particular, in this case, I'll recognize because he's been a thoughtful voice for this, and he's also helped inform me a lot of these issues.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of grassroots engagement I love, is let's get into the specifics and the details of what we're going to do. Let's get into winning mode rather than whining mode. That's what I want. Okay, we don't want to just sit around and whine. We want to win.
No, 100%. And I'm glad you have counseled a little bit with Marcel, because he is a complete dedicated patriot when it comes to making sure our elections are secure. I want to throw this up on the screen real quick if I can, and just ask you to speak on this more specifically as well.
So with a caveat, I don't see the screen. Okay, I'm looking down a black hole of a camera right now. Okay,
I'll read it. Everybody else can see it. It's your Facebook post is all it is. It's you saying, "I'll end the practice of sanctuary cities in Ohio after I'm elected, full stop. The rule of law is fundamental to our country, and we can't abandon it in our cities." So that's something that is on your Facebook page, which of course we support wholeheartedly. But I wanted you to speak to that a little bit more specifically, because again, of what the current governor and what would be your predecessor, Mike DeWine, again, is condemned. He has condemned the idea of ending TPS status for the Haitians, and it's Haitians and Syrians according to the Supreme Court, but it's the rule of law. But more specifically, whether they be Haitian or whether they be anybody else who is being protected in the state of Ohio, and especially in all of our big blue cities, you're saying you will take steps to make sure they have no protections here, and that the rule of law with respect to our immigration law will be followed. Can you give us more?
Yeah, and let me be very specific on the how here. Okay, so let's take a very specific example that's close to home for me. Take the city of Cincinnati. Why is that close to home? It's literally close to home. It's where I was born and raised. Okay, Cincinnati is my hometown. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati has a mayor and Democratic leadership who have declared the city to be a sanctuary city. What that means is that they're using the instruments of government to say that they will stand in the way of the enforcement of laws passed by the government, in this case, the federal government, our federal immigration laws. That's wrong. It undermines public confidence in the rule of law. Think about it. If you're an ordinary citizen and you're saying, okay, on one hand, you pass laws and tell me to follow them. On the other hand, when the federal government passes laws, you, the city, are saying, not only I don't have to follow them, you're going to help me not follow them. Then the citizens are going to say, why do I have to follow the other laws anyway? And by the way, if you go to Cincinnati downtown on a given day, they're not following the laws on a given day. Okay, so the breakdown of the rule of law is a direct consequence of the people who are supposed to enforce the law saying that they don't want to enforce the law and in fact want to facilitate violating the law. That's what a sanctuary city signals to the people who live in that city. So what I've said is we're going to end those in Ohio. What's the objection that you'd sometimes get, including from, traditional Republicans, let's just say sometimes, is they would say, no, you can't do that as governor. Okay, because cities are run as cities and we have home rule in Ohio. So, we can't do anything about that. Well, guess what? I'm not somebody who easily takes no for an answer. Okay, it's not something I did when I built my successful businesses. It's not going to be something I do when I lead this state. Let's double click. Okay, well, how are the cities funded? Turns out, Bob, they're largely funded by the state as well. And the way I look at it is you're not going to get automatic, just taxpayer money showering you and rewarding you like green pieces of paper flowing on an assembly line. We put the off switch on the assembly line until you abide by the standards that we as the state actually expect. And one of those basic standards is, you actually respect the rule of law and you actually stand for public safety in your city. So that, in the context of state politics, Bob, is considered to be a really big deal. That's considered to be like a seismic shockwave. To me, that's not a big deal. That's just common sense to say that we're not going to use your taxpayer money to take that from you and send that money automatically back to cities without saying that those cities have to abide by the actual rule of law that says those cities have to be protecting their citizens in the interest of public safety, that you have to enforce federal criminal laws, including federal immigration and other laws. That's common sense. And ironically, okay, the people who are left holding the bag in places like the city of Cincinnati, to stand my hometown example, are the very Democrat voters that the Democrats claim to want to protect. And so one of the things I'm also going to be doing in this campaign is not just going to small town and rural community and grassroots conservative communities, which we're going to continue to do, but I'm also going to go to the inner city and explain to a lot of people. I think it was last week or the week before, I was in Cincinnati. I was just walking around the streets, meeting, people who a guy like me may not ordinarily be captured on video meeting. Okay. But we're just meeting people. I'm talking about in the city of Cincinnati. Some of them, you could probably tell, are in a pretty difficult position, but you talk to them for a few minutes, they want a safer city. And a lot of them are part of that Democrat voter bank that they take for granted. At least the handful of people I met, I think a good number of them are going to vote for me after the conversations that we had. And so to me, this idea of growing the Republican Party's tent and growing our base and governing according to hardline commitments to conservative principles like the rule of law, which technically even shouldn't be a conservative principle, it's a pro-American principle. Those aren't in tension with one another. We can grow our base and stay unwavering in our commitments at the same time. I think they actually go together. And I think I'm, for a lot of reasons, Bob, uniquely well-suited to do it. So, look, I didn't grow up in Republican politics in the state. I haven't been climbing the ranks of the, political office ladder in Ohio. That's the way things have typically been done in the past. All I would say to your listenership, who I would consider our allies, I say this, you and I together.
Absolutely.
Is if you have felt frustrated, as I have, by the way, that Ohio has not fully been governed as the conservative state that we could have been over the last, even a couple of decades. If you share that, okay, you say we need somebody who isn't playing the musical chairs game, who isn't just climbing the ladder, coming from the outside. I wrote the book Woke Inc. before people were talking about woke. My publisher initially didn't want to publish it because they said that people wouldn't even know the name of what that was. Educated people on the leading edge of the issues that became the epicenter of the conservative movement. At incredible personal risk, by the way. including at business cost to myself. All right, having done those things, I say, okay, I'm putting all the comforts to one side. I'm volunteering to do this for a few years. Let's govern the state and lead us to the leading edge of the country and set a possible example for America of what true positive conservative governance looks like. The very thing that activists and conservative voices in our state have been wishing for years. Given that opportunity, which I think is probably going to be, realistically, look at the last 20 years, Bob, probably a once in a generation opportunity in our state. It hasn't happened in a couple of decades. It's a once in a generation opportunity on the Republican side. Versus, and you don't have to make the contrast any clearer, the COVID lockdown czar of Ohio, who went in a different direction than I wanted to go. And by the way, led Ohio to be the first state in the country to shut down public schools and is now proposing socialist policies as part of a socialist wave across the country. How much easier do you got to make it? Okay, if you're looking at this from the outside and designing this to be teed up to be what the conservative grassroots have pleaded for, have wished for decades, that's teed up. Question is now, are you ready to take the opportunity? If every one of the people who showed up for Donald Trump shows up and votes, we're going to win in a landslide. If everyone who cares about election integrity shows up and votes in November to put into the Ohio State Constitution a requirement for photo ID to vote, we will win this election. If every person who cares about conservative governance in the state shows up to vote in our rural communities, in our agricultural communities, in small towns, shows up to vote, we're going to win this. And we are going to win this, Bob.
Those are very, very big questions, if I may, Vivek, because, turnout is key. President Trump's name is not on the ballot this time to try to help everything down ballot. So it's going to have to be specifically to come out for you.
Absolutely.
And for a lot of other really, really important races here. And what people are going to want, if I may, is not just, he's not Amy Acton, a socialist. We got to vote for the guy that isn't going to be a socialist to add to that, growing number of socialists who are being elected all over the country for whatever reason. But it's what can he do for me? What can he do for us? And I know you can't see your screen, but for those who can, I want to put it up here, and it's your top 10. And I want to ask you, is this quote unquote your top 10 or is it just 10? You posted, I guess it would have been Saturday, 10 things I'll do for Ohio. For those who can't read it, I'm blowing it up as large as I can here. Slash your property taxes, abolish your state income tax, cut your electric bills, prosecute Medicaid fraud, bring higher standards to our schools, slice your healthcare costs, bring high-paying jobs back to the state, put human traffickers in prison, teach kids to be proud of our state and our country, and crush crime in our cities. These are 10 things that you said you will do. Yeah. Now, immediately underneath that, you see, again, these are, people who have questions and people who have, criticisms and so forth. Well, why not deport all illegals in Springfield? Why not stop all H-1B visas? What about this? What about that? And my response, I don't know if you or your team has seen it, I put right underneath it. He didn't say these were the only 10 things he's going to do. He just said these are 10 things he's going to do.
These are 10 quick things. These are 10 quick things I'm going to do, right?
It's a starting
Bob,
point.
That's such a great pause. That's such a great moment to just pause on. Because I think for the Patriots, which I think is 99% of the grassroots you're talking about, the Patriots who care about this country, I'm one of them. You consider yourself one of them too, okay? For 99%, it comes from a good place. It comes from a good place of wanting to see, and some for a sense of earnest frustration of not seeing our state governed as conservative as we could have been in the past. To them, I would say this is our opportunity, okay? Do you disagree with any of those 10 things, putting human traffickers in prison? Do you disagree with bringing back civic education that teaches our kids to be proud of our country instead of being indoctrinated with woke victimhood psychology? Do you believe that the income tax rate should be higher? Should it be zero like it is in other states like Texas and Florida in the country? I think you probably agree with me on those things.
Critical.
But let's just pause and say, okay, 10's a nice round number. Okay. And for social media, you say 10. Okay. You don't say, I have 26 and a half things I'm going to do. Okay. You got 10 things. And those are all 10 things I'm going to be able to do quickly. Prosecute Medicaid fraud. You agree with that or not? But let's just take the response. If the response is, well, why isn't something else on those 10 things as opposed to those 10 things I agree about? I love the candor. I'm always going to be a guy who returns the favor 360 degrees. All right. We have serious business to attend to. Okay, we don't have a hobby game of going around playing, just sort of online, dinking around for saying, well, why was this number 15 instead of number 10? These are 10 things I'm going to do quickly in this first 6 months. Do we deserve the government we elect? Yes, we do. Okay. Jefferson said it. These are founding fathers who put their lives on the line to fight an American revolution against the British monarchy and then got done the creation of a nation whose blessings we still enjoy today. So the question is, holding ourselves to that standard, what risk are you willing to take? Any Tom, Dick, or Harry can sit in their couch and lean back. I could be one of them too, and pontificate. We have before us a historic opportunity to put into action that which otherwise shows up in words. Okay, so you want to prosecute Medicaid fraud, you want to eliminate the state income tax, you want the biggest property tax rollback and government size reduction we've seen in the history of our state. Do we want to put the human traffickers in prison? Do we want to actually prosecute the violent criminals in the inner cities of our state, bring pride to our schools, civic education instead of woke indoctrination? Do we care about doing these things? If you do, we have an opportunity historically to do it. That's what I said. What am I going to do for you? That is what I'm going to do for you. Bring down the electric bills by producing more energy and overcoming the climate cult. Actually bring down healthcare costs by taking the billions in Medicaid fraud and putting it back in your pockets, law-abiding Ohioans, without hesitating. But of that 99%, Bob, what I'm not going to do is genuflect to the fringe 1%. This is what the Democratic Party does in some ways. And the fringe 1% is not to say that they're the more conservative. They're not. Actually, these are folks who there's a tiny percentage of people who would rather just sit around and complain. Because what if I win? Now they can no longer complain. Okay. Now we've actually gotten the most conservative governor we have. And some people, happens to a lot of people on the left, but it happens maybe to some people who are, social media and stuff can have pretty bad effects on people. Maybe it happens to others who once thought of themselves as being on the right to turn into a whiner rather than a winner. Okay. And if the main concern is, this guy actually might get elected and get done everything I've wanted to get done, then I can't complain anymore. Well, then I've got nothing for you. Okay. You're right. If you're a conservative grassroots activist who cares about conservative governance, once I'm elected, we won't have anything left to complain about. We're actually going to do the things we've wished for. But to that tiny 0.1% who might miss the chance to sit around and complaining, I've got nothing for you. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and those 10 items are critical, Vivek, and I'm really glad to hear. And not one of those, I don't think anybody listening to us who would watch me are going to disagree with. There's two other things I just want to hit real quick. I'm going to convene a panel discussion here on this program, probably in about a week, of about half a dozen people on the data center issue, because I find myself very, very conflicted. I understand you have made great points from the very beginning about the importance of AI and winning the AI war. President Trump has as well, so many others, winning the AI war with China, and that is going to necessitate cloud computing and data centers. And I understand we cannot submit to or capitulate rather and let a foreign country take over in that regard. So I get the importance of these things, but I also have heard the people talking about the concerns, and not just the natural resources and the water and so forth, but where they're going to be, what kind of ground they're going to be taking up, how close to neighborhoods, et cetera. And a lot of people are very concerned. So I've got people who are on your side, who are Vivek Ramaswamy supporters, but who are on different sides of that issue, which is why I'm going to do the panel discussion. So can you give me what your plan, if you are governor, is going to be with respect to pursuing more data center construction in our state?
Yeah, look, and I think two things, Bob. One is I'm having too much fun, but I think I'm way over what I thought we were going. So
I didn't know what our time limit was. So
I just realized I'm like 12 minutes over to my 8:30. Okay. But I have more fun with you. Okay, to be honest. So I'll go quick on this one, and then whatever your last question is, or we could save the next one for
we could do that
later. Okay. So here's what I'll say is I actually think it's really important to listen to local communities and not just listen to the top level memos, right? That'll be presented in clean 4-sheet memos, but actually listen to the experience of folks on the ground for what they're seeing. And I don't want to dismiss the energy and the water issues, right? You say just the energy and water issues. No, those are actually big issues. Mm-hmm. I think the way we address them is to say that if you're going to use energy, and I don't just take up data centers, 5 years from now, it could be a different form of economic development. We're going to have other advanced manufacturing moving back to Ohio on my watch. That's going to be a good thing. But this applies to any form of industrial development, right? Today it's one issue, tomorrow it's a different issue. It's the principles that matter. Okay, the principles are if you use electricity, if you use energy, the public can't subsidize you for it. You're going to pay for the energy that you use. If you use water or natural resources, you have to pay for what you use, and the communities have to draw boundaries for which natural resources remain public natural resources versus those for private use. And the good news is, across sectors, and we're seeing a hopeful boom coming in our defense industrial base, chip production. You could think about next generation advanced manufacturing. Data centers are a part of reindustrialization. The folks I would remind who have complained correctly for years about the deindustrialization of the Rust Belt, of the Mahoning Valley, of Appalachia, high-paying jobs going even to other countries from Mexico to Asia, and Ohio being at the losing end of that. This is part of what propelled President Trump to power. This is part of what propelled President Trump to turn Ohio back into a red state instead of a blue state that voted for Obama twice. This is why we want to see a new generation of Republicans lead Ohio to greatness. We want that reindustrialization of the state. That's a good thing, and high-paying jobs and production and manufacturing of every form coming to our state. But it has to be done on the terms that benefit local communities. Can we do both those things at once? The answer is yes, but it requires getting into the details. If you use energy, you either bring your own energy or you pay for the energy that you use, period. And if you do it right, that will result in more energy production that brings down electric bills instead of setting them up, which is what we've seen in the last year. Water, natural resources, same thing. Think about sites. We should make better use of brownfield sites. That is to say, abandoned industrial sites, often in townships and in cities, that actually are the very sites that are otherwise, what they call brownfield, abandoned. Let's use those as an opportunity to rather avoid some of the other development, of creating it from scratch. You can start with the brownfield sites. That's a win-win, both from a business standpoint as well as for our rural communities. So I think it requires a leader who's willing to get into those nuances, do this the right way, rather than just say, yep, let them run wild. I don't care. Use public money to subsidize. Let the electric bills go up. We just want more of it. No, it's got to be done the right way. But also to go in the other direction, equally glib, to just say, ban it. I don't like it. I don't like the sound of that. It's not for me. Ban it. No, that's not what we do in a society that respects free enterprise freedom and, most importantly, economic growth that lifts up wages. We'll deliver both of those things. And I think that's what true high-quality conservative governance actually looks like. I think President Trump's right about, by the way, keeping the U.S. competitive, believing in American exceptionalism. We've got to lead the way in the sectors of the future. That's President Trump's posture, and I agree with that. But I also agree it's got to be applied in Ohio in a way that are done on the terms of lifting up local communities. And I know that if you're willing to get in the details and lead as an executive, you can get both those things done. But I don't want to be glib in one direction or the other. It's going to be rolling up our sleeves and making sure, whether it's data centers today or a different form of economic development tomorrow, it's going to be something other than data centers a couple of years from now. The pace that things are moving, Bob, I don't think people have realized. The nature of the chips themselves are changing. The new NVIDIA chips have chip-specific cooling. So the water issue is going to be pretty quickly yesterday's issue. But it's going to be some other issue that you and I aren't talking about today that will be what we're talking about 2 years from now. And I think what we need is a businessman grounded by conservative principles at the top. That doesn't always co-occur. In fact, I think that's pretty rare. That's how I'm proposing to lead the state. And as I said, I think we have a historic opportunity to do it. But what I'll leave folks with is this isn't about fun and games. I promise it's not about fun and games for me. A lot of people might run for governor for status, for fame, for fortune. We've been blessed in our lives. I don't need any of those things. Being a governor is absolutely the worst possible way to pursue those things if that's what motivates you. And so it motivates a lot of people going to politics, not me. Okay. I'm in this because I believe and I know I can make a difference. I think I'm the one person in this state, if I may speak candidly, who can lead Ohio to be the state that Texas and Florida and Tennessee would emulate. If there was somebody else who could do it, I'd be getting behind them. My life would be better off for it. But what I'm asking everybody else to do is recognize with me that it isn't fun and games this year. This is serious. The consequences for our state could be glorious for conservative governance, or they could be devastating for the economy and for, frankly, even the culture of this state if someone like an Amy Acton comes anywhere near the levers of power again. And I'll remind you, the founding spirit of our country, what the Thomas Jeffersons of the world would have reminded us if they were alive today, 250 years later. The government you elect, the government we elect, is in the end the government that we deserve. We have a chance to elect not only me, not only John Husted instead of Sherrod Brown, we have a chance to constitutionalize photo ID requirements, everything we will have wanted, the conservative wish list for this state. We can turn that vision into reality and talk to the grassroots supporters who are actually in the details, right? As I said, the Stephanie Stocks of the world, the Marcel Sturbiches of the world. You think about, Jennifer Gross, other great state legislators. Get into the details with them because they're the ones that, we're getting into the details and actually planning out a policy agenda and an action agenda. But what we don't want to do is to turn this whole thing into some type of hobby because it's not. The consequences are too serious for us to just sit around and pontificate. We have a chance to take action. And so you told me what you need from me. I hear you, and we're going to get it done. What I need from you is every person who cares about conservative governance in this state, get out of fun and games mode. We're into serious execution mode. You show up at the ballot box, bring other 10 people who think like you to the ballot box as well, not just in the cities, but in rural communities from Appalachia to Northwest Ohio, where I'll be tomorrow. But you all do your part. And I promise you that my family and we will do our part to make sure that Ohio is governed according to the conservative principles that made this country great, to put faith, family, patriotism, and hard work ahead of race, gender, sexuality, and climate change, to be the state that every other conservative state in this country looks up to and tries to imitate rather than the other way around. That starts in January. It really starts in November, just 4 months from now. That is in our hands. And if you require of me, being the conservative leader that this state deserves, you should, then I require of you to take the action required to actually make that vision a reality. It's done at the ballot box. And by the way, starting in January, when I sign it into law, it'll be done with secure elections with photo ID to vote, no matter how you cast your ballot. Let's make it happen. And, Bob, I think we got an election ahead to win.
Vivek, thank you so much. I'm inspired. And I think anybody watching this, and I'm going to replay it again and again, are going to feel the exact same way. Thank you. You've been so generous with your time. I appreciate that very much. And by the way, it was the Stephanie Stock, Jennifer Gross thing was my last question. I will say, because I want to talk about your ability to make legislators move rather than hold things back. But we'll do that next time we chat. Thank you for your time today, Vivek.
I'll say one thing, Bob. One thing about that also for people to take to the bank here before we leave here.
Sure.
This is a topic for another day. I think part of the issue is there's a lot of special interests, right, in Ohio that jockey around. Okay. And why? I think that special interests are ultimately what often, get responses from politicians who are dependent on them. As a guy who, I'm not saying this to boast, your audience likes truth. I'm going to give you truth here. Okay. Give you the truth. You're not going to feign false humility. I'm just telling you like it is. We raised $25 million in the first year of this campaign through April. One of the reasons I did this is I matched dollar for dollar out of my pocket, took a $25 million check and put it in my campaign on April 15th, the same day that marked the first, full reporting period for the first full year of our campaign. Why did I do that? When your biggest donor to your campaign is you, then you're able to say that I'm going to do what is right for this state. And chances are, Bob, that's probably not the last check I'm going to put in either. So again, I'm not saying that to boast. I'm saying that for those who are frustrated by special interests choking the way the state has been governed, when a guy funds his campaign at the scale that I am, the people I'm listening to is the voters who put me there. So all I ask people to do is just think. Think for yourself and think independently, not as a hobby sport, but as a serious moral mission. Who do you want leading the state? And that's why I'm in this. And look, I think that when we take office in January, we're gonna go so fast, hit them so hard, our opponents won't even know what hit them. That's what it's going to take to execute. And those first 6 months will be the most productive period for conservative governance in 6 months that this state will have ever seen in our history. Who's it up to? It's not up to me. It's up to you. It's up to us to go out, show up in November, and make it happen.
Vivek Ramaswamy, terrific message to close with. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it, Bob.
Vivek Ramaswamy. I didn't know what our time limit was going to be. They didn't tell me. So I was just going to let him go until he was done going. So even when I tried to break it, he still had some more to say. And I think that's huge. I think that's so important what he just did. and the message that he closed with. If you are still on the fence about whether you're going to vote in November for the governor's race, if you are still butthurt that some Casey Putsch lunatic or somebody like that didn't get the nomination, if you still don't like the fact that he's not a Christian, and so therefore, if there's something holding you back as a conservative or a Republican or both in the state of Ohio from getting out there and voting for this man, if there's something still holding you back, then I guess there is no hope for you. Because if you can watch and listen to the last 53 minutes that we've done in this show and not be excited about this guy, not just be like, yeah, I guess I'll vote for him. If you're not sprinting to the polls to vote for him for Ohio, you probably should move. He's talking about, making Ohio more like Florida and Texas and Tennessee, the 3 red states that are kind of the new models, if you will, to make more people come here. Well, guess what? Let's make room for people who want to come here by you, evicting yourself. Honestly, I don't know what you're looking for. There's no perfect candidate. President Trump isn't the perfect candidate. We've talked about this in some depth. And I've always said, if you can find somebody you agree with 85% of the time, marry them. You're going to have a happy life. Or if you're already married, vote for them. You get the point. You're not going to agree with anybody 100% of the time except you. You'll agree with yourself all the time. With somebody else, you might have a little bit of a difference here or there. But if you aren't excited about voting for Vivek Ramaswamy in the state of Ohio, you probably don't want to stay in the state of Ohio. The last question, the one that I didn't get to there with him, and he still found a way to squeeze 3 or 4 minutes of a response in anyway, was going to talk to him about, the ability to move legislation through the General Assembly that sometimes gets held up in committee, sometimes won't. If it does get out of committee, won't be brought up for a floor vote because of some of our leadership. I didn't want to go too far into that because the side, half of the leadership, if you will, on the Senate side, Senate President Ron McCauley is running me. So I didn't want to go too far. I was more speaking about the House side of things, but it's one thing to have a grand vision for the state of Ohio. It's another thing to be able to get the General Assembly to move along with you. And that's why it was really, really important. And the next time we talk, I'll get into that a little bit more. But I heard enough in 53 minutes to what I didn't really need inspiring. I was already on this team, but it was inspirational. And I hope that it moves other people who may have been, again, for whatever reason, hesitant, whether it's about the data centers or H-1B visas or whatever your particular issue is that you may not agree 100% with him on. I still see online far too many commenters in, Ohio politics spaces talking about how I'm not voting for either one of them. I'm staying home. And even if they're not staying home because they may go to vote for some of the other races, they're just not going to cast a ballot in the governor's race. And I just have to ask you, what more do you need? I had questions coming in. He answered most of them, monologue format mostly. He liked to filibuster. This is Vivek. He's an explainer, which is a good thing, by the way. I prefer to have, well thought out answers than to have sound bites, the quick little, 5-second clips. So I appreciated that. And I am more inspired than I was when I brought him on to go and vote for him and to encourage you to do the same thing. I spent precious little time in this interview talking about Amy Acton, because most of us know who Amy Acton is. Most of us know Dr. Lockdown, the bumbling, mumbling lab coat, the one who fled when the going got a little bit tough, and the one who is, as Vivek said correctly, she's a socialist who's not registered with the DSA, but that makes her more dangerous because she's trying to hide it. Her policies are very, very much socialist. We don't need that in our state. I didn't want to spend, 30 or 40 minutes with Vivek Ramaswamy bashing Amy Acton. We already know who she is. I wanted to know, what are you going to do for us? And I thought we got just a phenomenal explanation, and it's an overused phrase to say a masterclass of campaigning, but I think I got everything I needed to get out of Vivek Ramaswamy in the time that we had. And again, he stayed longer. I didn't know what our time limit was. The team never really told me, we could have him for 15 or 30 or 1 hour or whatever it is. So we were just going to roll until he got done rolling. But I got enough in that period of time to buttress my opinion of him and to make me even that much more confident about what I want to see happen. And I hope you did too. This isn't I guess we got to vote for the Republican because the Democrat's a socialist. No, this is let's go get this guy in and let's support him. And he's right, by the way. He's going to be owned by no one. When you're writing the kind of checks to his own campaign he is, when you're funding your own campaign like this, instead of taking money from massive donors who expect things in return, it means he's going to be his own man. I thought the data center answer was spot on. First of all, the resources is not going to be a big issue in a couple of years because of self-cooling chips. Wow. The idea of using brown space as opposed to, fresh, fertile green space, farmland and so on and so forth to build these centers. Spot on. There is a way we can do these things. I still have concerns, which is why I'm going to do this panel. I've already got about 3 of the commitments. I'm going to try to get 3 more. I want to have at least a 6-person panel that I'll moderate. 3 people pro Ohio data center, 3 people opposed, and we'll have a really good conversation there. But I heard enough from Vivek Ramaswamy in this 53 minutes to not only confirm my belief that he's the right guy, but to excite me to do even more for it. And I hope you did too. I'm also excited when I can talk about my friends and when I can talk about partners in what we do each and every day. And that is, of course, includes, I should say, Charlie's Auto Repair in Lakewood, 13728 Madison Avenue or 13728. Say it how you want to say it. You see it on your screen. The address isn't as important as the phone number. That's the one you're going to want to schedule an appointment, because it's really hard just to drive on. It's a very crowded lot at Charlie's Auto Service because he's got a lot of people who love what he does. Make an appointment at 216-470-0170, 216-470-0170. If you've got regular old maintenance things, changing your oil, rotating the tires, those kind of things, Charlie will take good care of you. But if you've got issues under the hood, or if you've got issues under the mainframe, if you've got issues in the car's computer system, Charlie is a master at fixing electronics as well. So you name it, Charlie is going to take great care of you. I promise you. And the best part is, when you're a MAGA mechanic, you can be trusted. MAGA mechanic, he says he's going to make your car great again. He's America first every single step of the way. He's not going to upcharge you. He's never going to charge you for things that don't need to be done. And that is something that is worth its weight in gold, because mechanics are notorious for charging up on things that most people don't know about. And Charlie won't do that to you. He is America first, and he is a huge, huge supporter of this show as a foundational partner. Thank you to Charlie. Give him your business. Take your car. For your purposes, for our purposes, call 216-470-0170. And thank you to Charlie for being a foundational partner of this program. That is going to do it for us today. I wish I had more time, but I don't. It is 9:02. And for those who are watching this on replay, you know what you have to do. Seriously. And that answer is comment. Comment in the comment section if you're watching this on replay. What do you think of Vivek, and what can you do to help the cause? All right. Share as well. Don't forget, like, thumbs up, hit the notification bell, and then also share this channel with other people. Let them know that we are here. Share this episode with other people to say, if you are in any way in doubt about or have questions about Vivek Ramaswamy, watch this interview he just did with Bob France and put those concerns to rest. That's, I think, the best way that I can say it. All right. Thank you to you, I guess. Thanks to the 2 guests, Amanda Suffolk, phenomenal job talking about 2A. And of course, Vivek Ramaswamy. But most importantly, we're not here without you. Thank you to chatters. Thank you to supporters. Thank you to commenters. Don't forget, the more you share it, just like Vivek was talking about, grassroots. We got to go out there and share this amongst ourselves. Other conservatives, other people who are interested in the same things we are, who know that there's an existential fight in front of us, share it with them organically. And then ultimately the algorithms will find us and kick it out to more and more people. And that's when we have a bigger impact than we have now. So thank you everybody for your support. As always, be well, be safe, and stay free. We will see you tomorrow.